Welcome back to the Christian I Ching. This lecture is about the Stone Protocol, and I'm Roger Sessions. The goal of this unit is to describe how you'd go through the Stone Protocol to receive one of the numbers that describes one of the lines in your hexagram. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start by putting all 49 of the stones in the lower center area, the area that's marked working middle on your query mat. Now, as you are meditating about your question, think about your question. As you're doing that, gradually separate the stones into a working left and a working right pile. Just use your hands to separate them. Do it slowly. The goal is not to evenly divide them. The goal is to let each stone go where it wants to go. So separate the stones into a left and a right pile while you're meditating on your question. Now what you're going to do is take one of your stones from your working left area and move it up into A1. It doesn't matter which one, just choose a random stone from that left-hand pile, move it up into A1. Then you're going to take all of the remaining stones that you have in the working left area and put them in rows of 4. Now at this point, and at any point, you may spill out of the strict boundaries of working left to working right. Don't really worry about getting it exactly within the boundaries. Just get it as close as you can. So create as many rows as you have stones for. Just continue doing that. Your last row may not have 4 in it because you may only have 1, 2, 3, or 4 stones. But whatever stones you have left, go in that last row there. Once you've done this, take whatever that last row is, if it's 4 or if it's some remainder, and move it up into the area that's marked A2. Now you're going to take all of the stones that are in the working right area, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put them in rows of 4. And once again, that last row may have 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on how the stones divvied up. Don't worry about it. Whatever's there is there. So every row is going to have 4 stones in it, except for that last row. Now, that may have 4 stones, but it may have something else. Once you've done that, you're going to take your last row and you're going to move it into the area marked A3, just below the other one. So you're now going to have 1 stone in A1, some number of stones in A2. It may not be 4 because the way your stone's separated isn't probably going to be the same as mine. You're going to have some number of stones, 1, 2, 3, or 4 in A2, and some number of stones in A3, 1, 2, 3, or 4. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to count all the stones in the A region, and you should have either 5 or 9 stones. If you have anything other than 5 or 9 stones, and you made a mistake someplace, maybe one of the rows had 5 in it instead of 4, maybe the last row was not the last row and you picked the wrong row up, something went wrong. So correct the mistake if you have anything other than 5 or 9. If you do have 5 or 9, then you've probably done everything right and you can continue. Next thing you're going to do is take all of the stones that you have in the working left and the working right area, leaving the A region alone. Take those stones that are on the bottom half of your query mat and bring them all together into the working middle again. Now, once again, I'd like you to meditate on your question. Think about the question you're asking the I Ching. And while you're doing that, let the stones separate into a left and a right pile. Again, you're not trying to get an even division. You're just trying to let each stone go where it wants to go. Now you're going to take one of the stones from the working left area, it doesn't matter which one, and you're going to put it in B1. Now you're going to take all of the stones that are in your working left area, and you're going to put them in rows of 4, just like we did before. And once again, that last row may have 1, 2, 3, or 4, or it may be 4, but it's not going to have 5, and it's not going to have nothing. So whatever's in that last row, take that last row and move it up into B2, just like we did before, but now instead of going to A2, it's going into B2. Once again, you take the working right area and you put it in rows of 4 as well. And that last row may have 4 or it may have some number less than 4. Once you've completed that, take the last row that's in your working right area, whatever it has, and move it over into B3. Now at this point, we're going to do a count on the B region. And unlike the last region, if you remember, the A region could have either 5 or 9 stones in it. The B region also has 2 good numbers, but the numbers are now different. They're 4 or 8. So in the B region, if you have either a 4 or an 8 total number of stones, then you've done everything okay and everything looks good. If you have something other than a 4 or 8, you've made a mistake someplace. You need to correct that before you move on. So assuming that you have a 4 or an 8, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take all the stones that are in your working left and working right regions and bring them together, leaving the A and the B stones alone. Now again, you're going to meditate on your question one more time, and while you meditate on your question, you're going to separate that working middle into a working left and a working right. Now again, you're going to take the working left area and put it into rows of 4. Oops, sorry. You're going to take one of the stones from the working left and put it in C1. How could I have forgotten that? Take one of the stones from the working left and put it up into C1, and then put the working left region into rows of 4. Take the last row in the working left and move it up into C2, and then put your working right area into rows of 4. Once you've done that, have you done that yet? Once you've done that, take the last row that's in your working right, whatever it contains, and move it up into C3. Now again, we're going to do a check. We're going to count the number of stones in the C region. In the C region is like the B region. You can have either 4 or 8 stones. Either one of those is acceptable. Anything else indicates you've made a mistake and you need to go back and see what you've done wrong. Now we're almost done. We're almost done with this protocol. We almost have our first number. There's only really one thing left we have to do, and that is to count the number of rows we have in the working left and the working right in that lower half of the query mat. So count up the total number of rows you have. In my case, I have 7 rows. You might have a different number. But one thing I can tell you is there are only 4 possible numbers you can get for the number of rows, and that is 6, 7, 8, or 9. I got a 7. You might have gotten an 8 or a 6, but you can't get anything less than a 6, and you can't get anything greater than a 9. Now, whatever it is that number is, that's the number for the line. So if you had 7 rows, then 7 is the number of your next line. If it's the first time you're doing this protocol, that's your first line. So just take that number and write it down on the query mat, right next to the number where it belongs. We can translate the line types later. So I got a 7 this time, so whatever line I was working on, I would write a 7 right next to the line number. If it's the first time I'm going through this protocol, then that would be written down next to the first line. And then when you're ready, you're going to repeat this whole protocol. You'll take all 49 of the stones from all parts of the query mat, bring them back to the center, and you'll be ready to start this process again. You'll do this process 6 times, 1 for each of the lines. When you completed the 6 times that you're doing this, Then you have your response, and now the only thing we need to do is to create the lines and actually look up the archetype, which I'll do in the next lecture. So I hope you're getting a sense of what it looks like. You now know how to form a question, you know how to receive the response, you know how to take the response as numbers, you already know how to do the numbers and translate them into lines, you know how to take the lines, turn them into hexagrams, and then look up archetypes. So really, you're almost done with being a very knowledgeable user of the Christian I Ching. Join me in the next lecture. I'm Roger Sessions, and I'll see you soon.